everyone. I am so excited to be here today with one of our favorite instructors, Esterita Austin. And we will be talking a little bit more about her background and what she's teaching upcoming for us right after this message.
Welcome, quilters. We hope you've been enjoying the new Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival Online. While MAQFO is free and open to the public, the team at Mancuso Show Management have put countless hours into getting everything just right to help keep the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival going online and, when the time is right, our in-person events up and running. We are asking for a suggested admission of just $10. We've placed a link to our suggested admission page right here in the description of this video. You are free to leave more if desired, but we truly appreciate anything you can send. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we hope you are staying safe and healthy while enjoying Mid-Atlantic Quilt Fest online.
Esterita has been teaching for Mancuso Show Management shows for such a long time. She's practically one of the family, and I'm so happy to have her teach for us again this coming spring and to have her join us today. Esterita, thank you so much for coming. How are you?
I'm great, and it's my pleasure.
We're just so happy to have you here. And where are you Zooming from?
I'm Zooming from Port Jefferson, Long Island, New York, on the north shore of the island.
And is that where your home and studio is?
It is, and I'm in my studio right now. My studio is attached to the house, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to come in here in my bathrobe and just work and play.
That's so nice. That's what I like about work these days. I can just work in my pajamas, but today I'm a little bit more glammed up. Why don't you start a little bit by telling us about your background?
Okay, well, I started as an art teacher back in the early 70s. Yeah, early 70s. I had come from teaching in Europe and Italy. I'm sorry, not teaching. I went to school in Italy. I'm ahead of myself here. And I started teaching art in junior high school first, and then moved on to high school, which I preferred. And I did a lot of teaching of graphics and photography and printmaking and painting and drawing, which segued into my quilting. So I stopped I stopped teaching art when I had a family, and things progressed from there.
That's pretty awesome that you studied in Italy. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was 40 of us, and we're just having a great time, 18, 19 years old, getting into a lot of trouble, studying and working and painting and drawing. And I left my heart in Siena, and I try to return there every year if I can.
That's just amazing. Well, so you were studying and teaching art, and then you got into quilting. How did you get into the textile arts?
Well, I had been working with lithography and etching, which is very messy with all the inks and so forth. And then I had 3 children, and I couldn't just drop what I was doing and have all of these toxic things around the kids. So I had to go into some other art form because I needed to create. So my girlfriends asked me if I wanted to go down to a local quilt shop and take a class on making a quilted jacket. I said, I'm not going to do that. So she said, oh, come with me, keep me company. So I went with her and made, actually it was squares. It was different types of sampler squares. And I made 3 of them, and I kept going and going. It turned into a king size quilt. And then I just kept making bed quilts for a time.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So you really started more with a traditional style of quilting when you started.
I did. And then I finally took a class from a teacher named David Walker, who is an art quilter, and it opened my eyes, and I got so excited. I didn't even dawn on me that you could do art and quilting together. So I started doing my own art quilts, and I just went from there and segued from one form to another, working with fabric. And then I started painting on the fabric a little to make it more dimensional. And then I started painting on the fabric a little more to make it more dimensional. And then it turned into, down the road, only paint and no cotton fabrics. So that's what I've been doing now. I've been actually turning my quilts into printmaking. So I paint on a base of parchment paper, and we paint the whole thing. In fact, that's what the 2 classes I'm going to be teaching are. They're monoprinting classes, really. And you don't have to be a painter. You don't have to be an artist. It's a very simple step-by-step class that is almost like a coloring book, but you add so much more to it. And I go through it with you all day. I'm doing it along with you step by step, and we work together. And what we do finally is transfer that painting onto a piece of transparent organza, like a piece of glass. Technically that's what it would look like, with fusible, and it just goes onto the fabric, and then you quilt it. So I'm very excited about the process.
That is exciting. So that's really cool. That's not something I think a lot of quilters out there would think to do. So perhaps there's somebody out there or some people out there that are would be interested in your classes. Why don't you tell us a bit more about your workshops? You're doing an Italian style, which is the illuminated painted illusions.
Right. Well, I teach a workshop in Italy every year, and unfortunately, due to the situation, I didn't last year due to COVID, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I need my Italian fix. So I have an image of an outdoor cafe scene that I'm going to be teaching. It comes with a pattern and a photograph and materials, and there are supplies that the student supplies, a lot of things that people would have in their studio, and that's one of the classes. The other one is
go ahead.
I'm sorry. The other
No,
one,
I said go ahead.
The other one is a look back at 2020, whether we want to or not. But it's kind of it's called Graffiti 2020, Thoughts and Feelings. So we just take everything we're feeling and write down words and phrases and numbers and just kind of stream of consciousness. And then we're going to transfer it onto parchment paper with paint, and again, transfer it onto fabric and quilt it. The whole thing about working with words and phrases and numbers, it's a printing process, but everything comes face forward. Nothing is in reverse. So you don't have to think backwards at all. It's all forward thinking.
That's excellent. That's a great point, because I think that backward, having to think about those type of things would make it a little bit more challenging, for people to do that process.
I could never work in reverse with quilt making. I always had to have it, straightforward. So my brain just doesn't work that way. So that worked for me.
Well, that sounds really cool. So how did you get into teaching?
Into teaching quilt making?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when my kids were young, my husband had passed away, and I realized I had to prepare myself for some sort of career, and I couldn't go back into teaching because I was too high up on the tiers for being paid, and they could always get someone younger. So I decided I love teaching art, and I'd taken so many workshops, quilt workshops, that I decided I was going to try to work toward teaching quilt making. So I started a series of rock quilts, and eventually kind of branched out to my local guilds, and the Mancusos took a chance on me, which I am forever grateful for. And I taught for them at Mid-Atlantic. That was my first show with the Mancusos. And I'll never forget it. I won first prize that year with my quilt, The Well. So it was very exciting. And I've been teaching for them ever since and enjoying every minute of it.
Well, we certainly enjoy having you teach for us as well. Was that Mid-Atlantic in Williamsburg or in Hampton?
Williamsburg. We're going
oh
back.
My gosh. Yeah. So that is like the first couple of years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I always loved the show in Williamsburg. It was just so, not that I don't love the show in Hampton, don't get me wrong, but Williamsburg is such a great city and town that with between the 4 hotels and
right.
we always had so much
running around
fun.
from building to building to see all the quilts. That was fun. Yeah.
Right. Everything was kind of like separated. I loved it.
As long as it didn't snow.
Yeah. And now it's, grown into the Hampton Roads Convention Center, and hopefully we'll be there next year. So in person. So just to mention a little bit about your studio space. So from what you said, your studio is a bit of a mess at the moment. So we have a couple pictures of your studio. Why don't you tell us about, what is, like what makes your studio very accessible, and, what kind of tips you have for other artists that might be creating their own studio space.
Okay. Well, my studio was a two-car garage attached to the house. And it was turned into a large office that was not meant to be a studio. It was for my husband's work. And then we put in wood floors, oak floors, and windows all around. And eventually I moved into it and took over as a studio and had full lights put on overhead, full spectrum lights. And I love it now because there's one whole area here up against the windows where I have my studio set up for the cameras. I have 3 different cameras going when I'm teaching. I do virtual workshops. I do interviews. I'm doing on-demand classes, so I'm able to film here for course craft classes. And I went and bought myself a Q20 sit-down long arm this year, which was a real treat.
Nice.
And I have that in a corner of my studio where which is a little piled up with stuff right now, but I'm going to get to it. I've got an area to put kits together, and I have my Bernina regular machine in another area. So it's pretty accessible.
So what would you say is your favorite quilting tool?
My favorite quilt, probably the Q20, I would say, or a paintbrush. That's not really a quilting tool though, is it?
Well, you use it as a quilt, as an art tool for your quilts, right?
Yes.
What about the quilt that we're seeing on your virtual background?
That's one of 20 quilts that I did on old cars that were in the woods taken over by nature. And I'm actually going to have a couple of one-woman shows next year and the year after at
Oh, that's
Visions
great.
in San Diego. Yeah.
Well, maybe we could have it at one of our shows.
Oh, sure.
That would be awesome. We can
Amazing.
we can show your quilts. Now, is there painting on this quilt as well?
Actually, this is the same technique that I'm going to be teaching in your 2 classes.
Okay.
It's painted on very large parchment and then transferred to transparent organza that I actually happen to make. And that's paint, but the organza, oh, I can't even touch it. It's not there. Anyway, the organza is transparent. So you're actually seeing the paint through the organza. So the organza is like a pane of glass.
That's awesome. That's really great. Well, if anyone out there is interested in participating in Esterita's 2 classes, you will be able to register online at our quiltfest.com website as soon as registration is open. Just keep checking. It'll be open very soon. Esterita, how do you feel painting enhances the quilts?
I like the vibrancy of the color, that it just, it's a metallic paint. I use Jacquard Lumiere paint quite a bit, although you could use absolutely anything really. But I love the luminosity of the paint. I love the vibrancy it gives to the quilt. I love working with markers on top of it and oil crayons and anything on top of the paint. And then the quilting really adds that final layer of texture and line to it when I'm done, that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think that the texture is like the biggest, thing in the quilts, like adding like depth to, a pictorial scene, of what you're trying to quilt. And that's really, it's great. It's a nice, added feature that you can do.
Exactly. It's really a quilted painting.
It is. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect explanation. So what do you do when you're not quilting or painting?
I could tell you that I read a lot of books and I play racquetball and tennis, but I really watch a lot of TV. So I don't do those other things.
Well, what's your favorite show these days?
Oh, I loved Outlander when it was on, and it's coming back. At 8 o'clock, I like to sit down and just watch something that's going to let me relax and get away from everything, putting kits together and so forth and quilting, just to kind of put my feet up.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I'd love to do that if I didn't have two little children that they always want to watch, some cartoon, and I'd much rather watch Outlander, but I don't think they'd be into that. So what is one thing that many people don't know about you?
Well, I don't know if it's common knowledge, but I do go to Italy every year and teach a workshop there below Florence in a beautiful villa. And we have cooking classes for husbands who are interested, and we have painting classes, and we have this class that paint transfer. I
Mhm.
teach drawing to beginners, and then we take the drawing and turn it into a painting and transfer it to organza. And by the end of the week, we have a finished piece to be quilted. And we go to Siena for a day, we go to Florence for a day. I pick you up at the airport, I take you back, and the food is magnificent.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Italian food is, especially Tuscan
Oh,
food is amazing. So have you picked up Italian? Do you know how to speak Italian?
I studied in Italy my junior year. I've
Mhm.
been going for 16 years and I'm hopeless. I mean, I do speak Italian, but it takes me a couple of days to get back into it. I'm not terrifically fluent, but I do my best.
Yeah. The most important things you need to know are ciao and manja, right?
Exactly. Yes.
You
Manja's
need,
the most important.
yes, manja all the time. And then basta when you're done. Basta.
No, never basta.
Never basta. I'm totally there with you. I try to learn a little more every time I go as well. But it's hard to learn in a language as an adult. So
And vino is a very important word.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vino, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
it was such a pleasure to talk with you today. I enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the spring when you are teaching for us.
I'm looking forward to it too. And thanks for having me.
Thank you again, Esterita. Again, if you are interested in taking Esterita's workshops, the Luminous Paint Illusions, Italian style, as well as the graffiti, we will have those workshops on our website, quiltfest.com. Coming up very soon, we will have open the registration. And the show is actually April 28th through May 1st. I did think I forgot to mention that. So it's that last week of April, Wednesday through Saturday. Everybody, this is my last broadcast of the show, so I just want to thank you so much. Thank you to the Mancusos, especially Jared Mancuso, who is always behind the scenes doing our production, as well as my colleague, Michael. And, it's been a pleasure for another Mid-Atlantic, and hopefully next year we'll see you in person.
Oh.
Coming up, we will have David, who is doing a special presentation at 4 p.m. with the Quilter Valor group. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.